Welcome back, Keepers of the Flame. So I'm going to touch on the medical trauma for right now. And Yona's going to join us. Our little support familiar. So Wondery did some podcasts, and I'll link some below, about medical trauma. Now, some of the people were doctors and some of them weren't. But the effects of like knowing in the back of your head, because Bruce Lipton just went on a major like 3 point something million view podcasts, really famous dude, and I can't remember his name. But Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, went on and said that the number 3 leading cause of death in the U.S. is medical malpractice. That's a lot. That's a lot. And while no one is perfect and whatever else, you would maybe think that if something wasn't going right, they would fix it. If something was causing so much death, they would fix it. I don't think it's being fixed. So it lingers in the back of your head. So when you automatically walk into any doctor's office, you're like, oh, it's already there. And that adds to that experience. And then the doctors that are trying to do good are automatically set back. And it's a whole cycle of just craziness, basically. So holding space for that, understanding that both sides are not necessarily trying to be jerk faces, like suing people for this, that, and the other thing, or doctors trying to be, unhelpful, if you will. It's a matter of being human, being flawed, and maybe they didn't want to be doctors, but the family forced them into it. All these different, scenarios that can fit into this realm are not to be ignored or bypassed and only laser focused on this one thing. But understanding, coming from a perspective that there needs to be space held for this, because in my research, which you're free to do online, and I'll link some things below, only 2% of all malpractice cases are reported. 2%. That's just what we know about. And the numbers are not small. And I'm not going to get into that because I wrestled with this yesterday. I'm like, is this going to help? Not really. So holding space for that and understanding that, yes, it's the system that's in place. Yes, there's alternatives. Yes, they do some good. We can't just blacklist the whole entire community. Their diagnostics are like nothing the planet has ever seen when it comes to that type of thing. Also, their diagnostics leave out a whole ton of different things. Now, I think the TV show House, did a really good job of highlighting all the things that the medical community usually leaves out, which is what we're exposed to on the environment aspect of things, what we're putting in our face holes, yada, yada, yada. And then, lifestyle choices along with stress. Stress is usually number one, and inflammation, which I don't know for how long they've known that, but inflammation, number one cause of all disease. But what causes inflammation? Stress. Whether it's stress on the body, stress in the heart, stress on the mind, whatever it is. And so we're coming to this conclusion that the type of lifestyle we lead directly affects our health. Directly. Not indirectly, not subtly, not on a small scale, but people are getting very, very diseased and sick because of their lifestyle choices. Now, I'm not saying we take those choices away from them. Heck no. But I'm talking about informed consent here. This is premise for everything. Informed consent. What are you getting yourself into? What are you signing up for? What is this going to be the long term of whatever else? And I'm not touching that latest and greatest thing. I'm not touching it. I think people need to come to their own conclusions on that. I'm not, because let me put it to you this way. People on both sides are being triggered to an absolute extreme extent, and it's playing out in ways on the planet that we're not really conceiving of at the moment. And that's unfortunate, because if you claim sovereignty over another in any way, shape, or form, on either side of the spectrum, if you are using black magic and forcing your will upon another, that's a no-go. And the universe just gave us a taste of what that looks like. You do not force your will upon another. Period. The end. People are allowed their own sovereignty. Period. The end. If you need something, you go get it. If you think something's going to kill you, then don't do it. That's your right. And so this whole narrative that you have to be on one side or the other is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. Why are we doing that to ourselves? Why are we pigeonholing ourselves into one option or the other? Why can't people do what they feel in their own personal safety to do? Because somebody else told them that that's the way it has to be. People are not thinking outside of the little teeny tiny box. That's number one in the trauma community, is somebody has forced you into a very small, confined place, and you feel like you don't have any power or control over your own person. That's when people start doing really bad things. When they feel a loss of sovereignty and a loss of control and a loss of personal will to assert what their authentic needs and wants are in this vast community of an ecosystem that we need to respect. Otherwise, it's going to crumble, because we've lost complete respect for each other. Okay, if this doesn't highlight that, I don't know what does. So we need to understand, coming from a place of love and compassion, whatever you believe will be true for you. And if you believe that your power and your sovereignty rests in the choices of another, I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to let that settle. Because I don't think people understand the depth and the core of the issue that's really going to come to fruition if you hold those beliefs. And I touched on this in the religious trauma. When you give your power and sovereignty away to another, things are going to go really, really bad. And we're seeing this with the whole narrative of God, I'm trying to get out of this narrative, and here we are talking about it. So I'm going to do a few videos on this, and then we're going to move on. So the whole narky McNarkerton aspect of life, when you are giving your power away, don't be shocked when you don't have any power. Don't be surprised. Don't be dismayed. Don't be upset. Take steps to get your power back in your own possession. That's it. That's all. That's all you have to do. Because last time I checked, free will is still a thing, right? Because if it's not, that's black magic. That's the oldest label it has, and that's what I'm using. It's a magician in reverse. Forcing the will upon another that doesn't belong to them. It's not their will. They don't want it, and you're forcing it upon them anyway. That's a big no. That's a big freaking no-no. I can't express that enough. And we've been practicing it for far too long, giving our power away. And the universe will either brutally or delicately point you in the right direction, in the other direction, I should say. But I guess we're going to learn the hard way yet again. There's Uranus returns or Uranus coverage in the astrology playlist that I have. Highly recommend you go visit that, because the planets do have an effect on us. So if we have to come to the reality that the moon controls the tides, right? Or we just flush in the toilet on different sides of the planet in the morning and in the evening. What's that? If the moon is controlling the water on the planet, and we're made of how much water? Liquid, fluid. How much? Okay. And that, no effect. No. We're totally, completely protected by invisible forces from that. Okay, so you can believe one thing, but you can't believe another. That makes no sense to those of us who get it. It makes no sense. And we're coming to a point now where the detriment of taking the spirit, the vital life force energy out of every aspect of life, is now costing us in a major, major way. So you've got people on the one side screaming at the other, saying this is dangerous, this is toxic. And then you've got that side screaming at the other side, screaming this is dangerous and toxic. So if that's the case for both sides, what's missing? What left? What left the building? Your vital life force energy. Heart Math Institute. Go look it up. It's no longer woo-woo. There's no excuse on either side to be like, that's woo-woo and we don't want nothing to do with it. Because that's the very thing that we have neglected to the point where we just give it over to whoever asked for it. And the people who are taking it from us also are not. Because if they were in their own sovereignty and felt safe within their own body, they wouldn't be asking us for it. Much less demonizing us for it. So again, that's why Keepers of the Flame. I can't show you the book cover because it has a little lady. It's got lady parts on it. It's got lady parts on it. I can't show you the cover. I'm so sorry, but that's the whole premise. Keeping the flame. Okay. For too long, the truth has been suppressed. For too long, we've just been ignoring what's causing this negative outcome. Why can't we look at the proof in the pudding? Why do we have to tell ourselves, well, our intentions were good, even though the outcome was just pure horror? Why can't we be honest? Why can't we talk about it? Why? Because one side of the aisle or the other is going to be butthurt? But, like, humanity. That whole thing. Can we at least take that into account a little bit and maybe start understanding that if we can come to the table and sit down and come to the conclusion that, like, if we can just be courageous and look at the proof in the pudding and make changes based on the proof in the pudding rather than our programming and our regurgitating what's been put in our face holes constantly. If we can just stop that from happening, get right with ourselves and be like, okay, what's the real best action? What is in the highest good of all? I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with a broad brush or a Swiss cheese model. Honoring each other where we are is one thing. That's important. And no, you can't just walk up to somebody who's heavily indoctrinated and say, hey, why can't you see from my perspective? It doesn't work that way. This is going to take some time. If I see it in my lifetime, I'll be lucky. But Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, they're doing stuff. It's coming. So getting your own person out of a state of trauma and into a state of love. Focus on that. Honor where you're coming from. Otherwise, everything you do is going to be blocked. If you're in denial, it's going to be difficult to manifest and move forward in a way because you haven't healed those traumatic wounds. And if you haven't let go of that programming and you haven't unbound yourself from that narrative, it's gonna have control over your life force energy. I can't express that enough. This love and light thing, it's cute and all, but for the majority of humans, they're not understanding where they're coming from because it's not even allowed to be talked about yet. We're not allowed to bring this forth because we have a narrative that, you know what, if the dude at the pulpit says so, then you be quiet and you listen to him. If the dude wearing the white coat says so, then you shut up and you do what he says. I'm not saying this turns out bad for everybody, but I'm saying if we could just start looking at the proof in the pudding rather than ignoring it and just having to go about life as if it's just pretending to be okay and sweeping everything underneath the rug, rather than being honest, we're going to keep heading in the same direction and keep getting back in this boat of complete and total utter destruction. And I'm not, I'm just one person. I'm just one person. So I think there's a lot of us coming to this realization, though. I'm starting to see that more on the internet, and it is healing my heart. It is healing my heart. And if it wasn't healing my heart, I don't think I'd be sitting here and talking about this, because I don't want to be talking about this. But if it heals one person's heart, if it helps you move on, if it helps you come to terms with the fact that you're not alone and you're not losing your freaking mind, just because it's been normalized, just because people tell you that that's how you're supposed to act, that's what you're supposed to believe, this is how you're supposed to be in the world, and your whole entire innard is just fighting it tooth and nail, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That means you need to sit with whatever that is and come to an understanding why the pushback is there. It might be there for a very good reason. It might be there protecting you. It might be. That's up to you to decide for yourself and explore. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm not saying that the world doesn't need binding spells. I'm not saying that. I'm saying informed consent. Understand what is happening to you, what's being inflicted upon you, what the repercussions of those choices are. If you understand that, you'll be able to wield that power in a much more efficient, effective, and healthy manner, rather than shooting blazing arrows into the dark abyss and hoping everything works out okay. That's not going to work very well. If you can't see your target, odds are you're probably going to wake up a giant beast and you're going to have more tower moments than one should have or handle. Beast key. So, being in your body and honoring what that feels like for you. And the medical community has done some amazing, amazing, amazing things. I'm not denying that at all. And the religious communities, they help out in several different ways. I'm not denying that at all. But they also cause some things. Okay? And we need to be respectful of the people who are now in a state because of that. Okay? And we need to begin to understand that, hold space for it, and allow them to express themselves and heal. We need to bring it to the light. So, whatever that looks like for you, however you need to heal yourself, do it. Don't let anybody dictate. Honor your truth. Honor your sacredness. Keep it sovereign. And then find your purpose. Bring it to the world. You need to rewrite the wheel, do it. You need to write a book, do it. You need to, whatever it is, use that fuel and alchemize. I hope this helps. I hope you feel safe in your body. Hope. Why do I keep using that word? May you feel safe in your body. May you feel sovereign in your mind. And may you find your gifts and bring them forth for the rest of us to witness. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Keep the flame.